Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to see your faces. Yes, and if we haven't met before, my name is Brian. I'm one of our pastors here at Connection Valley Church, and I am thrilled to be with you today post-Thanksgiving. I hope it was a great week for you. It certainly was for us to have a few days to just kind of unwind, enjoy a lot of food and football and family, but I'm glad to be back with my church family this morning, so I just want to say that. And there's some things I want you to know. This month, our partner is Feeding Lisa's Kids. And you guys, you can see a great picture here of all your, well, not all of you, but some of your smiling faces from this past distribution we did for Thanksgiving. And you helped over 130 families in our community have Thanksgiving, which is worthy of applause for sure. Yeah, let's clap for that. Love that. And then we'll be doing another distribution for food insecure families in our community on December the 6th. So that'll be December the 6th at Wesley Memorial Church over here in High Point from 6:30 to 7:30 on Wednesday, December 6th. And then we have another Christmas distribution coming up later next month. I also want to let you know we are partners with a ministry called Dare for More Ministries, and they help women, rescue women from human trafficking. And they've really focused on the country of Guatemala. And you may remember we had a speaker come in here and speak to us and share the vision for that ministry a few months ago. Her name was Reba, and you may remember Reba. She had that strong coach voice. I love Reba. Reba's got so much passion. And they are selling coffee that's been harvested by these women that goes to helping them be able to be supported for, provided for. And this coffee is absolutely delicious. So if you chose to get coffee from our coffee dispenser in our lobby this morning, you are drinking this coffee that was harvested by those women. We are selling bags of this for $20, and it goes directly to supporting them. So I just want to say, if you're interested in this, grab one of us on our guest services team after the service, and we will hook you up. Thank you for that. I also want to say thank you to all of you who give financially to our church. You enable us to do what we do in the community. We give 10% of everything that comes in back to the community. And I just want to say thank you for that. You help us to sustain our staff. You help us to sustain our ministries. And so I just want to say thank you. I'm thankful for you because we can't do this without you. And if you're interested in being part of giving financially, we have a tiny little wooden box that's in the lobby that you can give to. You can also give by going online to that website right there. So thank you again to our financial partners. Also, we're doing something else for our community that's coming up. It's a Christmas toy drive, and that'll be this coming Sunday, December the 3rd, and the following Sunday on December the 10th. And we're collecting toys, unwrapped Christmas toys, for the Children's Home the Baptist Children's Home of North Carolina, down in Thomasville. Some of you live in Thomasville. Who lives in Thomasville? All right, that's like 5 of you. Awesome. And some of you didn't participate, but I know where you live. But we'll be delivering those toys on December the 15th. So if you can go ahead and bring one of those, 2 of those, 3 of those in for these kids, it's amazing. They don't have families that they're living with right now. They're in the homes there in Thomasville. And so you can show them that we love them and they are loved by God by bringing a gift to our church over the next 2 weeks. Very important thing coming up here on December the 22nd. Do you know what that is? It's Christmas service. Yeah, it'll be Friday, December the 22nd at 6 o'clock. And I just want to highlight this because it is a grand opportunity to invite someone who maybe isn't connected with a church. They don't maybe know Jesus. A lot of people at this time of year are open to an invitation from someone who has shown them care and concern. And so I want you to go ahead and be thinking about who are you going to invite. We will put our best foot forward to show people they are loved and that we love God by how we treat them. So just want to go ahead and put that out there for you to be thinking about that. Who will you be inviting? Some of you were invited by people in this room, and I bet you're thankful you were invited, and I sure am thankful that you were invited too. We are in the last week of our Path to Thanksgiving series, And we've talked about a couple important components to really be thankful so far in this series. And today, our friend Ken Klauser is going to wrap this up with something that I think is really elusive for a lot of us. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. So he'll be sharing something that I think is very important for you and for me to put into action this morning. I think that's all I have for you, but I do have a question that I want you to think about. If you were to walk in any room and there could be walk-in music playing, what would the song be? Now stand up and share that with someone around you. Say good morning. What would your walk-in song be? Stand up. Come on now. You can do this. All right, Amy and Scott, if you come on up, lead us in worship.
That's more greeting talking than we've ever had. That was awesome. You need a question every week. All right. It's so good to see you this morning. This is like a lot of people. I didn't know if Thanksgiving weekend people would be out of town or here, and it's just such a blessing to see your faces. And it's awesome to have Scott here. And we're going to sing a couple songs. I do the hiding, you do the finding. I do the running, you do the chasing down. I have my questions, you have your reasons, exhausted my options. There's only surrender now. For the first time in a long time, I give you my heart, unmeasured, unfiltered, the whole thing. Let's sing it out. I wanna pour out all my devotion. Every drop I have is yours. Nothing is wasted here in your presence. I bring you more and more and more. I'm done with the hiding. I'm done with the running. Oh, it won't be easy, no, no. But I know you're worth it all. For the first time in a long time, I give you my heart, unmeasured, unfiltered, the whole thing. I wanna pour out all my devotion. Every drop I have is yours. Nothing is wasted here in your presence. I bring you more and more and more. I bring you more and more and more. So if I'm in, I'm going all in. I was made for the deep end. There's nothing more precious than you. I wanna stay a little longer. I'm gonna stay a little longer. You deserve this whole jar of perfume. Oh, if I'm in, I'm going all in. I was made for the deep end. There's nothing more precious than you. I want to stay a little longer. I'm gonna stay a little longer. You deserve this whole jar of perfume. I want to pour out all my devotion. Every drop I have is yours. Nothing is wasted here in your presence. I bring you more and more and more. I bring you more and more and more. I bring you more and more and more.
I've carried a burden for too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go, and I see it now. I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. I run to the Father and fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend, and so I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, no, and again and again. You saw my condition, had a plan from the start. Your son for redemption, and the price for my heart. And I don't have a contest, no, for that kind of love. I don't understand it, I can't comprehend it. All I know is I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend, and so I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, 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 and again and again. Oh, oh, oh. My heart has been in your Son long before my first breath, running into yours is running to life from death. And I feel this rush deep in my chest. Your mercy is calling out. Just as I am, you pour me in, and I know I need down out. I run to the Father. I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding. No reason to wait. My heart needs a searching. My soul needs a friend. And so I run to the Father again and again. I run to the Father. I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding. No reason to wait. My heart found a surgeon. My soul found a friend. And so I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, and oh, and again and again. Oh, oh, and oh.
Oh, you can go ahead and take a seat if you haven't already. All righty, good morning. We are in the strangest week on the calendar, as far as I'm concerned, right? We spent a couple days ago Thanksgiving, meeting with family, with friends, a fantastic meal. The leftovers are great for days after. I was just talking with Tim about how much I love the turkey sandwiches left over. We spent ours a little bit different this year. Our oldest son is a firefighter, and those that are on call or on duty during that time, they have Thanksgiving at the fire station with everybody there, and family is allowed to come in and have a meal together. So this year, our family went to the fire station, and a couple of the other wives showed up, and we had a meal with complete strangers. And it was different, but it was good. The food was good. Conversation was funny. We had a good time. And I hope you guys did as well. I know it can be a stressful time. But what happens the day after Thanksgiving? What do we call it? Black Friday, right? Anybody go out into the mess that is Black Friday? Anybody? No? Oh, I see a couple timid hands. Little, maybe I went, maybe I did. I personally don't like that going out, but what my wife and I have done a couple times over the last, say, 10 years or so, is we'll go out on Black Friday, but not for the morning. We go out about 4 p.m. on Black Friday. Not because we're shopping for anything, we just want to see the aftermath of what occurred a few hours earlier, right? And you go, and it looks like you go through Best Buy or Target, or pick your favorite store, and the place has been ransacked, right? Everything is strewn out. There's stuff that doesn't belong everywhere. The workers that are still there, they have that 1,000-foot stare. They're just kind of shell-shocked by what they just went through. You see people scurrying from aisle to aisle. Oh, did they forget the Furby or the Lego I wanted? And we just find it mildly entertaining. So that's just us. But okay, so what happens we have Black Friday. What happens on Saturday? What is that? Well, okay, yes. Rivalry weekend for football, absolutely. But I did hear Small Business Saturday, right? Because we can't shop at all the big box stores. We need to support the local businesses because those are our friends, those are family, those are people in the community we know, and we ask them to support us, and we need to support them. We want them to have a good holiday as well. Okay, let's keep going. What do you call the Sunday after Thanksgiving today? I have heard Giving Sunday in a couple places, but actually that comes in a couple days later. I Googled it up. There really isn't a universal name for this Sunday. Maybe it's just a day to take a breath. I don't know. But we're not done, right? Because what comes tomorrow? Cyber Monday. And, this is for everybody that didn't want to go out in the crowds, for the rest of the 98% of you in here, online, find whatever gift you think you need to purchase. This is actually the first year that economists were estimating the participation rate in Cyber Monday would actually be higher than in Black Friday. Maybe not as much money spent, maybe there's still more money spent on Black Friday, but the participation rate is significantly higher. It's just a cultural shift that's happening. But we're not to be done, right? Tuesday is Giving Tuesday. If we're going to spend all this money on ourselves, honestly, let's be truthful. Most of the Black Friday day sales, we're not buying for other people, we're buying for ourselves. 2/3 of people that shop on Black Friday are actually buying TV for themselves. When was the last time you bought a flat screen TV for somebody that's not in your family? Anyone? Right? Right. But we can't just buy all this stuff for ourselves. We need to think of others. We need to make sure that we're giving to different charities. And every charity, I've already been hit up in my email inbox. Hey, Giving Tuesday's coming. We need your help. And it's just weird to me that we spend all this emphasis on being grateful for what we have and thanking God and being around family. And then we spend the next 5 days focused on money and what money can do for us. So as Brian mentioned, this is the week 3 in a 3-part series called The Path to Thanksgiving. And in the first week, Pastor Charles talked about gratitude. And he said choosing gratitude is God's will for us. We see this in multiple scriptures, Old Testament and New Testament, that God wants us to express gratitude. It's not just a warm, fuzzy feeling that, oh, I'm grateful for stuff. No, this gratitude isn't gratitude until you get it out, until you verbalize it to God or you express it to someone around you. And then in week 2, Pastor Brian talked about humility. And humility, he said, choose humility and trust God to lift you up. This is a big step when it comes to dealing with friends and family at Thanksgiving, right? Because we all want it to be my way, my direction, my preferences, when actually God is calling us to go His way and His direction. And we choose to humbly put other people's needs ahead of our own because we know that in time, God will lift us up. And each one of those steps lead into what we're talking about today, which is contentment. And I think that's a word that we all recognize, but maybe we're not really sure what that looks like. So whenever I get stuck like that, I start thinking, okay, well, what's the opposite? All right, so, or at least what it's not. Contentment is not being apathetic. It's not like, I don't care, I'm content. That's not what contentment really is. Contentment also is not boring. It's not just kind of a flat line of no highs and no lows. I'm content right here in the middle with nothing else to do. That's not contentment. Contentment also is not complacency. It's not, oh, well, I'm not going to achieve. Why bother? We're good. I'm content where I am. I don't need to. That's not what true contentment really is either. So again, I try and look at the opposite. So if I told you that somebody was a malcontent, what are some of the words or postures that come to mind? Just go ahead and call them out. Bad. Somebody's bad. Malcontent, that's bad. We don't like that. Anybody else? Malcontent. Dissatisfied? Yeah. Grouchy? Say again? Disturbed? Yeah. Do you get an open posture or do you get a closed posture? Definitely a closed posture, arms crossed, just kind of scout, just malcontent, just about everything. Here's a good working definition of a malcontent. Spoiling what you have by desiring what you have not. So you might have a really good thing, be it a car, a job, a relationship, whatever. But I see that over there, and suddenly that's better, so this isn't good enough. That's being a malcontent. And we warn ourselves against this a lot, right? We'll say things, this especially happens with things, right? With stuff. My car's great, but I want that car. Oh, my house, we live in our house is good. Oh, but they have a nicer house. It's very easy to get caught up in that. We warn ourselves about this. We say things like, there are no luggage racks on a hearse, right? You can't take it with you when you die. We warn ourselves, but it's so easy with our American consumerism lifestyle and everything that comes flashing on the TV screen or the ads through your phones. It's very easy to become discontent with where we are. The truth is, we're not the first ones to deal with this. This struggle with discontentment traces all the way through human history. This is why we go back to the scriptures with our struggles and our issues time and time again, because God's word can be applied in each generation. Just because discontentment hits us differently than it did a couple centuries ago doesn't mean that it's not the same struggle, or that we can also find helpful strategies in the word. So we're going to take a look at a couple passages that Paul talked about contentment in. Now, in this first one, Paul is writing a letter to his protege named Timothy. He and Timothy set up a church in the town called Ephesus, and Paul went on from there and left Timothy behind. And Paul actually ended up in prison for preaching the word, and so he was delayed to go back to help out Timothy. So he wrote him a letter saying, hey, if I'm going to be delayed, these are the things you need to know. And partway through the letter, he's talking about the difficulties with, or warning him about false teachers, and people that come in and try to preach the word of God, but they're really just trying to make a buck. That doesn't happen today, does it? Yeah, that kind of sounds familiar. But Paul has this to say about contentment. He says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. I want to stop here for a moment and just recognize, but godliness, godlikeness, imitating God, following in Jesus' footsteps is different from contentment. Just because you're following Jesus doesn't mean you're automatically content with everything that goes on in the world. Putting the two together, though, Paul says that's a great gain. That is something valuable. He says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. And we should recognize this next part, right? For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out. If we have food and clothing, we will be content with these. Paul is telling Timothy that we can choose our perspective on money and the things that money can buy. Notice he says, but we will be content. That's a choice. Being content is an active choice that we have to make. And when we stop and think about it, it makes all the sense in the world. We can accumulate all sorts of things, but it's not going to come with us when we die. The ancient Egyptian kings tried that. We opened their tombs, we found their stuff, didn't find them. They're gone, and they left it all behind. Doesn't look like they've touched it either. But it is so easy for us to get caught up in the pursuit of money and the things that money can buy. The desire to live comfortable, to take it easy, to have it good, just actively creeps into our lifestyle, doesn't it? And I can confess that as I've gotten older, that desire to take it easy has only gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. And as my career has progressed and the salary has increased, I now have more opportunity to spend those funds on myself. It's really easy to do that, which is why I think Paul continues with Timothy on this in verse 9. It says, but those who want to be rich fall into temptation, a trap, and many foolish and harmful desires, which plunge people into ruin and destruction. And then in verse 10, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. You'll hear people say, money is the root of all evil. It's not. That's a misquote for what Paul's actually saying here. It's the love of money that causes problems. And by craving it, some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. If we are chasing money for money's sake, what Paul is saying is self-inflicted wounds. If you can imagine taking a knife and just stabbing and cutting in various places, you are hurting yourself by making this pursuit of money the end-all goal of what you want. And whether we're wise with our money and we don't have any debt, or we're unwise with our money and we're buying everything on credit, the message from the world is still the same, isn't it? You deserve this new thing. You deserve that new car. You deserve this experience. You deserve that vacation. All you have to do is sign right here. What you have right now isn't good enough. What you need is what I can provide. That comes at us over and over and over again. But believing that lie, that you deserve each one of these things, will lead only to a path of ruin and destruction. And don't think for a moment that this temptation only falls to non-believers, or that good Christians or real Christians would never, ever fall into this kind of trap. Because in the next sentence, Paul says this to Timothy. Now you, man of God, flee from these things. Paul is warning Timothy. Timothy believed on Jesus for eternal life. He's a leader in the first century church. He's Paul's right-hand man. And Paul's like, hey, if you this discontentment stuff, flee from it. It's not enough, though, to know what you need to run from. You need to know what you have to run to. Because if you're just running, you usually end up just running back to the place where you were before. So let's look at the whole verse that Paul has here. It says, now you, man of God, flee from these things. Flee from the discontentment. And pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness. We must choose if we're going to run or flee, just like we must choose to be content. Now, this is some tough advice. Like, okay, how am I going to apply this? Well, don't think for a moment that Paul is saying that you need to have nothing. Like you need to live the ultimate minimalist lifestyle. Live in the tiniest tiny house that you can muster. You get one change of clothes. You have one pot to make your food in. Everybody in the house gets a fork and a spoon, and you just make do. That's not what Paul is advocating here. Because a few verses down, he continues. Instruct those who are rich in the present age not to be arrogant or set their hope on the uncertainty of wealth, but on God, who richly provides us with all things to enjoy. He doesn't say it's bad to be rich. It doesn't say anything about it's bad to have things, to have comfort in your life. But, and just to let you guys know, compared to the rest of the world, all y'all are rich. All are rich. And so we need this instruction. Instruct those who are rich in the present age not to be arrogant or set their hope on the uncertainty of wealth. Where do you set your contentment? Is your contentment in the size of the bank account? Is your contentment in the car that's in the driveway? Is your validation based upon how much money you bring in? These are the things that Paul is warning against here. But at the end, he said, look at this. God provides us with all things to enjoy. He's warning Timothy of the natural human tendency to take things that are meant to be enjoyed and we turn them into things that become our identity and our validation and our proof that we're worth something. And we love those things. It's a natural drift there, and it's a dangerous one. We should certainly enjoy everything that God has given us, but if we love the gift more than the giver, then we're playing with fire and we're going to get burned. Like Paul talked about, that is a path that leads to ruin and destruction, and it's filled with self-inflicted wounds. So we've been warned. Okay, Paul, I get it. Need to keep this in check. But how do we go about doing this? I mean, it's not enough just to know what kind of strategies, what can we do about this? Well, Paul also discussed contentment with another church. And this is not even close to Ephesus. This is in Philippi. And I take some comfort in this, knowing that Paul had to mention this to different churches, because that means different people in different locations. So when I struggle with contentment and you struggle with contentment, you know what? We fit right in. So Paul wrote a letter to the church in Philippi, and it's a thank you letter. It's really, really cool. Multiple times throughout Paul's ministry, the church in Philippi would surprise him with a gift. Have you ever received a gift out of the blue? It's not your birthday, it's not Christmas, and someone's like, here, I thought of you and I think you need this. Like, that's awesome, thank you. And that's what happened to Paul. Paul didn't charge for his ministry services, so he depended upon these gifts to keep his ministry moving. And when you read the letter Philippians, it is chock full of everything we've talked about in this series. Paul repeatedly expresses gratitude to God and to the Philippian believers because of their generous gift. Paul points to Jesus as the ultimate example of humility, where Jesus took on the form of a servant and completed the mission that God had for him, and at the end of that, God raised him up above everything, making him the ruler of all. And then at the very end of this letter, Paul just kind of drops this statement, and he's like, wait, hold on. You ever been in a conversation and somebody just drops a bit of news and they keep going? You're like, no, we need to go back. You said what? Well, that's what Paul says. I found the secret to contentment, and just keeps going on in the letter. I'm like, wait, hold on. We need to take a look at this. So let's go to Philippians chapter 4, verse 10. So Paul, again, he's thanking them for their gift. I rejoiced in the Lord greatly because once again you renewed your care for me. This isn't the first time they've sent him a generous gift. You were, in fact, concerned about me, but lacked the opportunity to show it. So they found one and sent it to him. All right, let's go to verse 11. I don't say this out of need, for I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances I find myself. I think it's interesting, he says, I have learned to be content. This isn't something Paul just kind of checked the box and moved on. Something he had to learn in whatever circumstances. So he had to practice contentment in the different circumstances that he found himself in before he could say, I figured it out. I found the secret to it. Let's go to verse 12. He says, I know how to make do with the little, and I know how to make do with the lot. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being content, whether well-fed or hungry, whether in abundance or need. So twice, in the last two sentences, Paul has said, I found the secret to contentment. This is something that we need, right? People search their entire lives for inner peace and contentment. And Paul's like, got it. Okay, so Paul, please tell us what it is. Can we go to verse 13? I am able to do all things through him who strengthens me. That's it. I mean, one of the most quoted verses in the Bible is Paul's secret to contentment. I have seen this thing, I've been in the church a long time, so I've seen this verse plastered on t-shirts and coffee mugs and coming out of the mouths of sports stars in interviews. Jonathan Isaac, he's an NBA player, he's coming out with his own shoe line, and he's a Christian, and he's going to have different Bible verse references on the shoes, and on one of them, he's going to have a 413 on the side in reference to this verse. And every time I see this quoted, it's like the attitude is, well, whatever I set my mind to, God's going to bless me in it. Is that really what Paul was getting at? If that's the case, then I need to get a pair of Jonathan Isaac's shoes, and I'm going to set my mind to being the starting point guard for my favorite team, the Phoenix Suns. Okay, Snicker, it's fine, but okay. I don't have to start. Can I at least be the first guy off the bench? Can I set my mind to that, and God's going to... Is that what Paul really means by the all things? It can't be, but it says right? All my things? So what's Paul really getting at when he says, I'm able to do all things? When you look back at the context, it's not Paul saying, whatever I set my heart on, I know God's going to bless me. When you look at the context of the passage, and even in the larger context of the book, it's not very long. It's only 4 chapters. I'd highly recommend that you guys take a look at the book of Philippians. But you see, Paul is saying, I can complete the mission that God has given me. I can do all things associated with the mission that God has given me through him who strengthens me. Paul is basing his contentment on the truth that God is faithful to follow through on his promises. That whatever God calls you to do, God will give you the strength to do. And contentment is found in a heart at peace. So when you're at peace in the present moment, you can have contentment because you know that God is faithful. But, this was Paul saying, I can complete my mission. And we know people, Ryan, Charles, other people that they have a calling for ministry. Well, what about you and me if we don't have, I haven't experienced a specific call to ministry. I know I'm not called to be the Apostle Paul, the next Apostle Paul to the believers in the Mediterranean. I know I'm not called to lead worship in a church, and you should all be expressing gratitude to God for that one. So if you don't have that specific call, how are you supposed to find contentment? Well, let's think about the things that Jesus talked about. What are some of the things that Jesus said for us to do? Well, you can love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, those two commands will give us direction for the rest of our lives. And there's no circumstantial qualifier on those. You can love God and love others, whether you're well-fed or hungry or in abundance or in need. So what I want to do with you guys for these last few minutes is I want to go back through and replace the all things with a few things that we know that God has called us to. All right? So let's go to the first one. I'm able to love God and love others through him who strengthens me. That makes a whole lot more sense, right? Some people are really hard to love. And I know y'all practice this at Thanksgiving as well with those that you are sharing a meal with, right? You needed God's strength to do some of that loving. I understand. I get it. Now for the next, I've got just 4 more. But if these apply to you, I want you to say them with me because it helps us to put things into practice if we're at least saying them out loud. So this next one, if you're married, let's say this one together. I am able to love my spouse through him who strengthens me. And if you've been married more than, say, a month, you know you need some help loving that imperfect person that you've kind of hitched up your life with, right? You need God's strength to help this because there are just some days that are hard. There are some days they rub you wrong. There are some days they don't do it what you think they should be doing, right? But there's no circumstantial qualifier on that. Better or worse, richer or poorer. We said all of that, we'd still love. All right, so for the next one, if you are a child, or even if you are an adult child, let's say this one together. I am able to honor my parents through him who strengthens me. That's another one that's tough. And that is the first command that's given with a promise from God in the Bible. And we are still called to honor our parents. Now, when we're adults, Mom, Dad, I love you all, but I make my own decisions as an adult, but we still honor them in the way we interact with them. And that may have stretched you, again, referencing back to Thanksgiving, that may have stretched you to the limit more than your pants needed to stretch after dinner. But it's still something we are called to do. And not all of God's commands are easy, so I think we all need to say this next one together. I am able to endure hardship through him who strengthens me. Sometimes life goes in directions that we wouldn't have picked, right? I wouldn't wish this situation on anybody, and here I am. And we have this, the only way out is through. But God may not remove that situation from you, but he promises to go with you through it. God will give you the strength to lead you through whatever path you're on right now. And you can trust that he follows through on those promises. You can trust that what's coming out on the back end is good, especially because he's the one walking through with you. And this last one, I'm afraid, I think is the hardest one on my list. But I know it is something that God has called us to do. I am able to forgive through him who strengthens me. If you bristled and you already have a picture of that person in the back of your mind, I get it. I understand. And it might take time, but God has called us to forgive. And he will work with you and work on you until you come to that point, because it is for our best to forgive others, even when we don't want to, right? Knowing that Jesus is our source of strength in the here and now puts your heart at peace. Depression and anxiety cannot get a foothold in your life if you are content in the present moment. I was reading recently that depression is being so focused on the past that you're ruining right here. Like, I wish it was like it used to be. Or my memories, I wanted that, I don't want this. and so I'm depressed. And anxiety is very similar. It's the flip side, right? I'm so focused on the future. I'm so worried about the what ifs and the I don't want tos, and that path is not what I need, that I'm so anxious about it that I'm malcontent with where I am. That's why I think we need to keep coming back to Paul's secret of contentment. Chapter 4, verse 13. I'm able to do all things through him who strengthens me. Whatever God has called you to, he will give you the strength to do. So when you're feeling discontent, and you need to ask yourself, what am I expecting? What is the source of my contentment? What am I expecting to satisfy me here? What event or person or thing are we placing our hope in that moment that's leaving us malcontent with whatever we have at the present? Could it be when I get that promotion, when I'm a director, then I'll be content. When I can afford my dream car, when I get that Mustang, then I'll be content. When I finally get the relationship that I want, when I get that special girl, when I get that perfect guy, when I can buy my kids the things that I didn't get when I was a kid, then I'll be content. What are you expecting to make you content? Are we too hung up on the past? I wish I had that. This isn't good enough. I wish I had. Or are we too worried about the future? I'm too scared of this, and so this is not good enough. Whenever we run into discontentment, we need to check ourselves to see what are we expecting to make us content? Again, contentment is found in a heart of peace. And we can have peace. We can choose contentment because we know that God is faithful to fulfill his promises. Now, the genesis for this 3-week series actually came from a contentment journal that my wife and I have been going through. It's a 90-day journal, and the first 30 days are full of prompts that talk about gratitude. And the next 30 days, it's about humility. And the last 30 days is about contentment. And we'll finish out this journal later this next week. And it's been interesting to see how one just kind of flows into the next topic-wise. Now, if I was to go through this by myself, it was okay. But the fact that I was going through it with my wife made all the difference in the world. Because then it would be, oh, well, how do you remember this? What do you think of that? And some nights, we'll sit there, we'll write in it, and then she'll share what she thought of, and I'll share what I thought of, and maybe 5 minutes went by, and that's fine. We'll put the book down, we'll pick it up tomorrow night. And then other nights, it led to some really good conversation, or even some changes, some decisions that we made and things that we did the next day. So learning contentment, like Paul talks about learning contentment in all situations, that's something best learned together more than struggled through on your own. And one thing that I realized going through this contentment section is that I've struggled more with contentment than I realized. I wouldn't have labeled it that, but now that I'm looking at it, it kind of makes sense. You see, as a husband and a father, I fully accept my role to provide for and to protect my family. 100%. I'm in, no worries about it. All the decisions I've made for my career, where we've moved, how I spend my free time, that has been the context. Take care of the wife, take care of the kids, set everybody up. Okay, are we good? Now, you might pat me on the back for that, but that desire to make sure that everything is where I think it should be has actually left me discontent in several situations. And it's usually whenever they would leave and I wouldn't go with them. When they would go to the grocery store and I was still at home. Or if they would be gone for a couple weeks to visit family and I had to stay back because of work. I was so worried that something would happen. That if I was there, they would be safe. It would be all right. But what if there's a car accident? What if they lose a tire? What if they get robbed? What if somebody gets hurt? And I run down all of those things. I'd see them drive away, and my stomach would just start to turn in knots. As I'm thinking about all the things that, of course, I would have saved them from. But, I can't protect them from. I can't control that situation. And over the years, I mean, this started when they were small, and they're not small anymore, but this started when they were small, and it took me a long time to finally get to the point of, okay, God, I know you protect me when I'm out. I'm going to have to trust you to protect them, because obviously I can't do anything standing right here. I'm going to have to trust you. And as much as it hurts to say this, if the thing that I don't want to happen actually happens, I'm going to trust you're going to give me the strength to get through it, which led to peace in the present moment, which means that I was content with whatever path God took us down. And you know, after being a dad for over 20 years, you get some practice at it, you think you've got it. I've learned contentment in all situations, right? Well, this hit me again about a year ago. Because a year ago, my oldest son came and said, I want to be a firefighter. And I could tell you all sorts of stories why that makes total sense. From he was little all the way through growing up, I get it, this fits, it's him. Now, when you volunteer at a fire department, you don't get to do everything right away, right? That's not safe. And you get a yellow helmet. They call it a yellow hat. And as a yellow hat, there's lots of things you can do. You can help out at the fire station. You can go to car accidents. You can do the yearly pumping of the fire hydrants to make sure everything's primed. You can do community events. You can even support the exterior of a structure fire, but you're not allowed to go in. You need training for that. And there's two ways to get the training. You can take the day academy or the night academy. And our friend Davis Brazel, he took the day academy, so in 6 months, every day, at the end of that, he gets his black hat, which means he's allowed to go interior. My son took the night classes, so it's 2 nights a week, every other Saturday, and that goes on for a year. Well, it's been a year. He graduates this next Saturday. They even chose him to speak at the graduation on behalf of the class. We are ridiculously proud of him. And again, this fits. But he gets his black hat now. And while he can go in, I have no guarantee he comes out. And I am right back where I was when he was small. I have to learn contentment in a new situation. I have to trust that whatever path we go down, God will give us the strength to go through. So here on Take a Breath Sunday, when we're in the middle of this crazy money week, right? And as you move into the Christmas season, do not forget this path to Thanksgiving. When you express gratitude to God and others, when you put other people's needs ahead of your own, then you are in the perfect position to choose contentment. Not in the things that we can buy, or in the things that you can achieve, or the situations that you want to control, but you can find contentment in knowing that God is faithful to take you through whatever he has for you. Whatever he has called you to do, he will strengthen you to do. So I leave you with these two questions. What is your source of satisfaction? What do you expect will satisfy you? Finally, I've made it when I hit this. Or what event or person are you expecting to make you content? These are hard questions, guys, I know, but they are worth the wrestle. And so the last thing is what I've said several times, and I hope this stays with you. We can choose contentment because we know God is faithful. Let's pray. God, thank you so much that you are faithful. That if we don't know the future, we don't know what comes next, we know that you do. And we know that you have our best in mind. So God, thank you that you walk with us. You're patient with us. And thank you that you partner with us. Help us to remember the path to Thanksgiving. God, we express gratitude to you now, and we thank you for everything that you've done for us, with us, and the gifts that you've given us to enjoy. God, remind us to choose humility when we're stuck on our own way. And God, again, thank you that we can find contentment in you rather than anything else that's clamoring for our attention. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
In your presence I quiet my soul, and I hear your voice. In my spirit I hear this song of salvation song. Jesus, 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 Jesus. And I will wait in your word, oh Lord. There your spirit speaks, bringing life to the weary soul, to the depths of me. Jesus, 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 Jesus. Oh, 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 no, no. Oh, no. I love you with all my heart. I love you with all my soul, Lord. I love you with all my strength, with all that is within me. And I love you with all my heart. And I love you with all my soul, Lord. I love you with all my strength, with all that is within me. And I'll sing 'cause you saved my soul. Oh, I'll sing of your love forever. I'll worship with all my heart, with all that is within me. Jesus, Jesus, my Lord, Jesus, Jesus.
That hit a little different, didn't it? Wow. Thank you, Scott, for landing our time like that. It was a beautiful connection to your message, Ken. And I just want to tell you, man, I'm proud of you. Your vulnerability, when you show your heart like you did today, and you've done this multiple times over the last year, man, it hits different. So I want to thank you for bringing that out, sharing that story about Kenneth, and gave me a lot to think about today. I think you gave us all a lot to think about today. So I don't know what your takeaway is, but we will have a small group time after this service, about 15 minutes after this service. I'll say 11:23. It's a good time. And at 11:23, we'll meet in the back of this room and on Zoom to have a discussion about today's message and service. And if you can't join us for that, we want to give you the opportunity to talk about it over lunch or on your way home. So here's a couple questions we invite you to kick around. The first one is, do you struggle with being content now? I do sometimes. I'm one that gets anxious. I'm the what if. I understand the idea of what if. I know a lot of you do. I can see some of you are actually nodding, so thank you. I'm not alone. The second question here is, what derails your commitment or contentment? What derails it? What gets you not trusting God? And then we have another question here, this next screen. If it helps to plan ahead before the struggle comes, right? Some of you are planners. When you start to feel anxious, depressed, or discontent, how will you remind yourself that God is faithful? It's a great question. I would love for you to discuss that with us here and on Zoom. But if you can't, really, this would be a great conversation over lunch or on the way home. Now, we are starting a brand new series next week, appropriately called Who is Jesus? I thought that last song, I was like, that's a great setup for the next series. And so I'm thinking, yes, who is Jesus? And we're going to answer this question. And I think how we answer this question could be transformative for your Christmas season, for you and the people that you bring. So I just invite you to come back next week for the Who is Jesus series as we celebrate our Savior over the next several weeks, culminating on December the 22nd with our Christmas service at 6 o'clock. Now, I'm not done yet. I'm going to just briefly go a little overtime here. Some of you have met Amy sitting over here, and she's helped to lead worship here at Connection Valley for about the last 16 months. And it's been incredible to watch Amy come back to life. That's been a theme in her life. If you don't know Amy's story, it's worth hearing, but she's been through a lot. And God was not done with Amy. And Brooke said, we should reach out to Amy. I think she would be great to help lead worship at Connection Valley Church. And this was back about a year and a half ago. And so, yeah, let's talk to her. Let's just reconnect and see what God does. And we reconnected, and God brought her to us. And he brought her back to life in a new way. And he's now given her a new assignment. You see, there's another church that's in Kernersville that needs Amy. And they've decided to hire her full-time. They're able to hire her full-time. That's going to be able to provide for her in a way that's God's provision. And so, Amy, we're still going to be partners. We don't know exactly how. We know you're going to be back at our Christmas service helping us lead worship that night. But I want to say thank you for leading and engaging our church family. And you're always going to be part of our church family. You're always going to be invited. You're always going to be welcome. And I want you to come up on stage, and I want people to be able to give you an appropriate appreciation with a hand clap. And we have a little gift for you. So my lovely bride is going to bring you some lovely flowers, because we know that most women like flowers. Maybe some of you guys, their love language for you. We figured as much. we love the fact that you've come back to life. And this, when I saw those flowers, that's what it reminded me of, just life. And I hope you enjoy some of your goodies in that bag. I've asked Kate Smith, Kate has been a friend of Amy for years. They actually did camp ministry together up in New York years ago. And Andy and Kate moved here to be in community with Amy and her husband, Mike. And so they've been partners in ministry for a long time. I want to invite Kate to come and pray for Amy and her new assignment and just to express gratitude on behalf of Connection Valley Church. So I'm going to give you my microphone, and I'm going to step to the side, and I'm going to let you pray for Amy.
Well, thank you. Don't cry. Man. I have to say that I marked it, and then I'll mess it up now, but godliness with contentment is like your life verse, Amy. Don't cry about it. You've seen a lot of things that would be really hard for anybody else to put up with, and you just are like the strongest person I know, but it's all because of your faith in Jesus. So, woo. I got to pull a Brooke and work through it, man. Here we go. I don't know how she cries and talks at the same time. I got to just do that. So if you'll pray with me for Amy. Lord, you know this woman. You know her better than she knows herself. And I just pray for her journey. I pray for her strength and that you give her wisdom, Lord, that you put her path so clearly before her, Lord, that she would know which way you want her to go and how to do it, Lord. And it's all about you. It's always been about you, Lord. And I just pray that you're with her, that you help, that you close doors she's not supposed to go through, and that she just follows that path for your glory, Lord, that it's all about you. And so I just pray for her family, and her relationship with you, Lord. And I just pray that you are there, strengthening her and comforting her and building her up, letting her know how awesome she is. We pray for you. Amen.
Thank you so much. You're awesome, Kate. And Amy, what I want to do is I want to let you go ahead and work your way to the lobby so people can express appreciation to you on the way out, and no one steal her gifts. And I also want to let you know one other thing. I've been in conversation with Scott, and Scott has said that he would come and step in and help lead worship and help us develop our worship culture here. So I'm excited about that. And Scott, I'm excited about our partnership and how God just provides. It's like every time something happens at our church and it's like, oh, this person is going through this door and it means that they're going to go to something different. It's like there's a new door that pops open and someone else walks through and I'm like, oh, hello. And so that's what's happened with this. And I'm just thankful, and I'm thankful for you guys. And thank you for letting us go over time today. I'll look forward to seeing you next week for our Who is Jesus series. And as our greeters make their way out, I want to make sure that they are able to say goodbye to you properly. And again, Amy will be in the lobby. You can say congratulations. And if you're not able to because you're online, feel free to put a message in the comments. I'm sure she will check them later. Thank you for being here today. We'll see you next week.